So recently, Beto O'Rourke has been in the news, and that is, of course, concerning a possible 2020 run. Now, articles have been all over Politico, The Hill, Washington Post, Daily Beast, basically through a lot of establishment media. Now, I thought that was very curious when I started seeing these Beto 2020 things pop up over the last month or so. Now, look, the reason that I say that is that, look, during the primary fight with Ted Cruz, and I'm sorry, not the primary fight, during the primary fight with a progressive challenger, not a lot of people were paying attention. And it was only during the fight with Ted Cruz that some of the national media started to pay attention. And that, of course, is when he started raising a lot of money, right? So now, afterwards, after he lost to Ted Cruz, why is he getting all this media attention? Again, I thought that was very, very curious, right? Well, it turns out that Beto may not be the progressive that we've been looking for, but is perfect for the establishment. Now, hold on. Before you guys start rage tweeting or rage commenting, let's be fair. Let's look into his record and see if he's actually progressive or not. I mean, again, he said he was in favor of Medicare for all, right? Well, okay. Well, let's look into that. Now, there's a Politico article from July that said that, at least for a time, he had sworn off using the terms single payer or Medicare for all. Well, why would he do that? Well, I mean, maybe he was taking advice from the Democratic strategists. Now, look, the Democratic Party has said we need to avoid talking about Medicare for all. Now, to me, that's a red flag, right? So what did he say instead of Medicare for all? Well, he used the phrase universal, guaranteed, high-quality health care for all. Well, it's so much easier to say Medicare for all because Medicare is deeply popular. Medicare for all is deeply popular. So I don't quite understand why you would go back to saying something that is very long and convoluted, unless, of course, you're attempting to be opaque. Now, his campaign website is about as clear as that before, stating that he aims for achieving universal health care coverage, whether it be through a single-payer system, a dual system, or otherwise. Oh. So, again, it's a little vague, but at least they mention a single-payer system. So, again, not very clear, but it does at least say it. But to me, it seems like they're saying it. Maybe we'll look at single-payer if there aren't any other options. Now, believe me, the donors will make sure there are other options for them to look at. So that's my take on that. But okay, look, let's go further, right? So what about climate policy? Now, look, on climate change, it's very clear. We've got about 12 years to massively turn around our economy and get away from fossil fuels. We need the Green New Deal, right? So now that we're having a conversation about the Green New Deal, where does Beto O'Rourke stand? Well, it's been reported that he has called the decision between oil and gas and renewable energy sources a, quote, false choice, and proposes on his campaign website mainly to rejoin the Paris Climate Accord, empower the Environmental Protection Agency, and enact energy reform. Okay. Now, that's not terrible, but they are establishment positions, which, hey, if you're into that, okay, but that's not the bold action that we need on the climate. I mean, we need to be in emergency mode, red alert, because the climate is in some serious trouble. Now, a lot of people have gotten concerned from his not-so-progressive stances on these positions. Now, one of them is Elizabeth Bruenig. Now, she wrote a mild criticism of O'Rourke's record after looking into it. Now, she wrote, I think the times both call for and allow for a left populist candidate with uncompromising progressive principles. I just don't see that in O'Rourke. O'Rourke's statements on energy have been surprisingly thin. Beto is a lot like Obama. True, it's perhaps time for left-leaning Democrats to realize that may not be a good thing. So that's Elizabeth Bruenig. That's some mild criticism, right? Now, what does O'Rourke say? Well, here, actually, let's go to what Democrats are saying. This is Brad Bannon, who's a Democratic strategist, and he talked to Newsweek. It said, quote, "Look, Beto O'Rourke isn't a young Bernie Sanders. He's more like a young Joe Biden. It seems that he has always been Obama-esque. I don't think he's ever represented himself to be a progressive in the Bernie Sanders mode." Not only that, but Bannon also says he sort of sees himself as a charismatic Bobby Kennedy type. He's never going to be the hero of the Sanders party. Well, I mean, there it is. There's your Democratic strategist explaining who Beto is, right? And Beto himself has said, I wouldn't go with labels. I mean, progressive, I don't really like to go with labels, guys. I'm a no labels kind of guy. Which, of course, you guys know, no labels is one of those centrist Democrat groups. Wonderful. Now, again, that's Bannon. Let's go back to Brunig. Now, her mild criticism ended up lighting Twitter on fire. But first, let's go to his voting record before I get into that. Now, Zed Jelani of The Intercept wrote a recent article about his record, and it said, while the Democratic base is coalescing around single-payer health care and free college, O'Rourke sponsored neither House bill during his time in Congress. He never joined the Congressional Progressive Caucus. He has been, however, a member of the New Democratic Caucus, the group organized to carry on the ideals of Clintonite policies. Uh-oh. Well, that's another red flag. But wait a minute. Well, he's in Texas, right? Texas is conservative. So he's got to represent his constituents, right? And his constituents have to be more conservative because they're in Texas. And he's just following the will of the voters, guys. Like, don't go after him. Don't attack him like that. Well, now, hold on. He's in the 16th Congressional District, centered in El Paso. That is apparently among the more liberal in the country. So saying that he's just doing this to represent his constituents is not a convincing argument. Gelati also noted that while O'Rourke steadily avoided left-wing legislation, he went above and beyond to ally himself to the corporate wing of the Democratic Party. And a couple of examples are fast-tracking TPP and voting to deregulate the banks by chipping away at Dodd-Frank. And according to an article in Jacobin, his years in the House have given him one of the better U.S. Chamber of Commerce voting scores among Democrats. We know the Chamber of Commerce is overwhelmingly pro-corporate. Now, of course, you can point out correctly that he doesn't take corporate PAC money. I know because I pointed it out all the time when he had my support against Ted Cruz. And I did support him. You guys can go back and you can look at the videos, right? But there's some information that I've learned since then. Now, it came in the form of a tweet from journalist David Sirota. Now, he tweeted basically a very simple breakdown from Open Secrets of where Beto O'Rourke got a lot of his campaign contributions, right? Now, that tweet, as I said, contained finance data showing that O'Rourke received a lot of money from the oil and gas industry. Well, now, wait a minute. He didn't take corporate PAC money, right? Well, it turns out that he had the second highest total of donations linked to the oil and gas industry in Texas. Now, again, is it from PACs? Well, here's the thing. Again, I said it was not from PACs. He's not taking actual PAC money, right? But you could also argue that, look, those people work in oil and gas. And look, he's in the middle of Texas. So you know, it's the employees, and the employees are progressive, and they're supporting him. And O'Rourke is totally progressive. But no, I wish that were the case. It turns out that it's not the case. According to investigative reporter Alex Koch, who looked into this, of the $430,000 that O'Rourke's Senate campaign received from individuals who work in the oil and gas industry, 75% has come in the form of large donations over $200. And those donors include more than 24 oil and gas executives. More than 30 donations were maxed out above at $2,700. So 30 oil executives maxed out on their donations to O'Rourke. These aren't progressive employees. These are oil and gas executives who, of course, profit off oil and gas. Now, it turns out that O'Rourke, in taking that money, broke his no fossil fuel money pledge. Now, that was a commitment to reject campaign donations over $200 from fossil fuel PACs and executives that was endorsed by 16 environmental groups. Beto O'Rourke signed that. Oops. It turns out that he violated his own pledge. Nonetheless, you point out that record in those contributions, well, that's going to lead to attacks on Sirota and Koch from none other than Center for American Progress head Neera Tanden. Now, the Center for American Progress also takes money from fossil fuels as well as corporate donors. So they're not necessarily in favor of progress, but more of we're centrists, we're pro-corporate, and we're going to take corporate money. So when Neera Tanden calls looking into someone's record dangerous, and not only that, but saying that it's a coordinated attack from the Bernie bros, well, that throws up a huge red flag. And so I think we have enough red flags here to make a real determination. And that, of course, is that we got hoodwinked. Now, I know some of you are saying that from the beginning, and you were right. Now, was he better than Ted Cruz? Of course he was. And if it were between Ted Cruz and this guy, I would vote for Beto. Of course, I'm not an idiot. But at the same time, look, you have to look at the record and you have to examine it fairly. And what you see from this record is that Beto is not progressive. He is not a progressive. And so a lot of us ended up getting duped. Now, there's no shame in that, of course, right? You have to look at the facts, and really, we have to be more careful. And I'm saying we as people in the media, even the Young Turks, Cenk Uygur, you know, he talked to Beto, interviewed Beto plenty of times. Even he got duped. You know who didn't? Interestingly enough, Jimmy Dore. So Jimmy Dore actually gets some credit here for seeing Beto for who he actually is. But what we need to do here is we've got to vet candidates better. We've really got to dig into their past to find out who they really are and if they're actually progressive. And if they're not, to at least let people know so that they can make their own decisions. Hey guys, hopefully you enjoyed that free video. Now I'm going to have to ask you a favor. Between the demonetization and the YouTube algorithm messing around with view counts, etc., we're having a hard time adjusting to the new YouTube reality, which is where you guys come in. See, we have a Patreon, patreon.com/TYTNation, set up to help us rely on you guys, the viewers, instead of big corporate ads. Look, you know the show. You know how I'm not in favor of big corporations anyway. So help us transition away from relying on the ad model to pay the bills and sign up to be a patron, patreon.com/TYTNation. That goes a long way to help us keep the lights on. And you guys will know that you're supporting independent progressive media.